Hey everybody, it's Holly here today, and today we're going to be using the Shades of Autumn stamp set from Newton's Nook. This is from their September release that just became available yesterday in their shop. It's also available in the Marker Pop shop, and we have a great sale on the Newton Nook stuff, so be sure to head over and check that out. We're also going to be using some distressed Oxide inks in Wild Honey, Fossilized Amber, Vintage Photo, and Peeled Paint. Now, I'm going to be using a technique that I like to do with my distress inks. This also works very well with distressed Oxide inks because they are pigmented and you can stamp with them. So I have a piece of Tim Holtz Distress Ink watercolor cardstock, and I'm stamping the image into the ink, and then I'm spritzing it with the mister bottle before I stamp down onto the paper. So you stamp into the ink pad, and then you spritz it with your mister, and then you stamp it down onto the paper. You hold it for just a second, and then you lift up. Now, depending on how much water you put onto the stamp, or how little, that's going to determine how crisp of an image you get. These stamps have a unique design where it looks like it's shaded if you just use regular ink. So I'm kind of just not having it as detailed, I guess you'd say, by doing the misting technique. So I'm just going to use different shades here. And that center maple leaf, I went ahead and stamped that in Fossilized Amber, and then I rock and rolled it into the fire brick a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill up my background here with the stamps. Each one, again, I'm cleaning off the stamp in between, and then I'm stamping it into the ink, and then off to the side I'm spritzing it lightly with the spritzer, and then I'm coming back and stamping onto the paper. And then after you have your background the way you want it, the very important step with doing this technique is you want to make sure that you heat set everything. The Distress Oxide inks are pigment based, like a hybrid, so they take a little bit longer to dry. So you want to make sure that you dry everything. So before I dry everything though, I'm going to take the squirt bottle or the distress sprayer, and I'm going to spritz the cardstock lightly so that some of the ink moves a little bit. I want to kind of create a distressed look. So I'm going to go ahead and heat set it in between each time that I do that. So I'm going to spritz it, move it around, heat set it, spritz it again until I get the look that I'm achieving here. So you want to make sure you do that before you do your finalized drying, where you're going to kind of heat set everything and make sure everything's permanent. Even though distress inks will react with water later on. So once I have that all dry, my ink's moved around where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and take some Vintage Photo regular distress ink and a mini ink blending tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and put this all around the cardstock. Now what I'm doing is I'm very heavy-handed around the edges of the cardstock, and then as I come across the cardstock over the leaves, I'm going very lightly because I don't want to deepen the color that's on the leaves too much. So you just keep working around until you achieve the look that you want to achieve around the edges of the cardstock. And then when I'm all done with that, I'm going to go ahead and take that Mr. Ranger Mister bottle there, and I'm going to go ahead and take the top off, and I'm going to stick a paintbrush into it to pick up some water. I want really fine little bubbles, so I'm using a small paintbrush. I'm just splattering that on. Then I'm going to pick up the excess with a paper towel. And then I'm going to go ahead and heat set again. So, like I said, you want to make sure you heat set everything in between each step here. I like to heat set on the front of the cardstock and also flip it over and heat set on the back. That kind of keeps the cardstock more even. Kind of helps with the warping so you don't have so much warping. So then I'm going to go ahead and pull out some Distress Spray Stain, and I'm using the Tarnished Brass. And I'm going to take it the lid off the bottle. You could spray it, but I'm going to take the lid off the bottle and use that same small paintbrush and just dip it down into the bottle, and then I'm going to flick it around onto the panel there. I wanted some really fine little gold flecks, and then I want a couple droplets, so I'm just kind of playing around, and what I get is what I get. When you're done, you want to make sure you dab up any excess blobs, I guess you would say, because when you dry that, they could kind of become bubbly and sticky and not dry all the way nice and flat. So you want to make sure you break up any bubbles that you might have. So there you can see I have kind of a thick blob. I want to pull up a little bit of that and make it more flat. So once I've got this all down, I'm going to go ahead and heat set that again as well. And then we're going to go ahead and start assembling the card. Got a piece of kind of a rusty color card base here. And I'm just A2 size folding that on top. Now I was going to use this Avery Ellis banner set, but I didn't really like the way the banner looked, so I decided to go ahead and use an MFT one instead. I'm just adding some adhesive to the back of the watercolor panel. Make sure you use a lot of adhesive because you have any warping. Just going to adhere that to the front of the card. And then I'm going to go ahead and use a MFT blueprints. I believe this is blueprints 25 or 29. I'll have it in the description box below. I'm using that little banner die cut there. Then I'm going to go ahead and add some anti-static powder to the banner, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment from the Shades of Autumn stamp set in some VersaMark ink. And I'm going to use some Ranger embossing powder, and I'm just going to go ahead and put that on there, and then I'm going to go ahead and heat set that on the side there. This embossing powder is really great because you can see all the details on that sentiment. It has like a brush lettering effect to it, like you painted it with a dry paintbrush, and all those details are still there with this embossing powder. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere the banner to the front of the card using some foam tape. I'm going to go ahead and use some Pretty Pink Posh mixed gold cup sequins here with some Ranger Multimedia Matte. And that pretty much finishes up my card for today, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to head over to the store to check out the latest Nook's release. And I will see you back next week with a new video and an introduction to a new fall contest we have coming up. Bye-bye!